Would you knowingly go to a sociopathic therapist? Hear me out. Let me know in the comments. Tell me why you would or why not. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, so I'm always going down a rabbit hole. I love anything that has to do with mental health, neurology, physiology, any of that stuff. Before I get into it, just know that this article discusses mental health and may include some sensitive content, so viewer discretion is advised. Hello, I'm a sociopath and a therapist, and I believe I have the best of both worlds. I'm also someone who has a doctorate in clinical psychology. My name is Patrick Agnew, and I'm a diagnosed sociopath. What follows is everything I'm authorized to tell you. People like to believe that sociopaths are one-dimensional serial eaters. It's a comforting thought because if every sociopath looked that way, we could easily spot them. I'll be spotting them. You wouldn't have to wonder if you're married to one, living next to one, or more disturbingly, if you birthed one, like I did, right? This is not my story. Okay, I'm about to continue. The truth is, most sociopaths resemble normal people. That makes the reality more terrifying and unfortunately more accurate. Am I a sociopath? That's not even a simple question. The term isn't used clinically anymore. But through that lens, the classic sociopath is someone who struggles with learned social emotions. Sure, we all are hardwired to feel happiness, sadness, and fear. But sociopaths often can't grasp emotions like empathy, compassion, shame, and remorse. Those have to be learned, usually through parental modeling. When that modeling doesn't connect or stick, you're left with someone like me. There's this concept of the sociopathic mask. The idea that sociopaths fake empathy and charm to harm. In reality, we mask for the same reason everyone else does, to get by. If I dropped the mask, you'd meet a much flatter effect. Less blinking, less animated, not mean, just different. Less engaging, more efficient. My childhood, complicated, but probably not in the way you're expecting. No traumatic horror story to point to. I was a problem in school, but invisible at home. I felt this emotional claustrophobia I didn't know how to name, and I learned to neutralize it by acting out. One day at elementary school, I poked a classmate with a pencil, but it was actually classified as something much worse. She had provoked me, but barely. I felt pressure building up, and that act, though I knew it was wrong intellectually, gave me this euphoria I still struggle to describe. I walked home on air. It wasn't about harming her, it was about the pressure released. That wasn't the last time I used defiance to ease the emotional crush. In adolescence, I started breaking into houses, not to steal, not to hurt, just to exist where I wasn't supposed to. There was peace in that, quiet, stillness, apathy, a kind of a mental float. And that became my therapy, my release valve. I called it microdosing mischief. And it worked for years. Eventually, though, I had to change course. I didn't want to end up in jail, so I saw a therapist, and she was remarkable. We approached things not from the label of sociopath, but from what was driving my behavior, which was anxiety. Turns out the compulsion to act destructively was a maladaptive strategy to self-soothe. We used CBT and cognitive journaling to reframe my thinking. I wrote out my irrational belief. If I don't act out, I'll explode. And then I countered it with logic. I may be uncomfortable, but I can process this. Therapy helped, but not because it changed my emotional range. I still don't feel guilt like you do. I don't experience pride or empathy the same way. I do, however, understand those things intellectually. And that's enough to function. That's enough to be a good therapist, she said. To each their own. I'm not coming for this woman. And yes, I was a therapist. There's a massive misconception that therapists need to be empathetic. I'd argue what they need is objectivity. If you ask your oncologist whether they like you, you're missing the point. You're there for treatment, not approval. Same applies here. Do you all agree? I'm going to give you my purview at the end. Okay, I'm her again. My decision to pursue psychology was motivated entirely by my desire to understand myself. What I didn't expect was that it would make me better at understanding others too. Relationships, though, tough. I spent a lot of time trying to find a person who could make me feel something. Turns out, life doesn't work like that. Eventually, I reconnected with someone from my youth. His name is David. And for the first time, I was honest. I told him what I was, that I don't feel guilt, that I don't experience emotions like he does, and he didn't flinch. That changed everything. There's somebody for everybody, right? Parenting. Well, I raise my kids differently. I don't parent from guilt. I don't guilt them. If my son brings home a bad grade, I ask how he feels about it, not how I feel. That shift gives him space to process this instead of reacting to my emotions, which are limited anyway. She don't be caring. She not giving to me. When people hear I'm a sociopath, they usually lean in, not away. They want to know more. They want to unburden themselves. They feel safe with someone who doesn't judge. And that's a perk. There are more perks. I don't people please. I'm not burdened by social guilt. I make decisions based on logic and outcome, not approval, which can be liberating. But let me be clear. I'm not romanticizing sociopathy. I'm normalizing the psychological experience behind it. I want people to see past the label and stop equating sociopathy with violence or evil. The public loves fictional sociopaths, Dexter and Wednesday Addams, but balks when it comes to real ones. And I want to change that. Roughly 5% of the population is sociopathic. But I believe that's a conservative estimate. We only test people already in prison, which skews the data. We're missing those of us who fly under the radar, who wear the mask, who can function. If you want to understand someone like me, don't ask, Are you a sociopath? Instead, ask, what does it feel like when you feel? That's where the conversation starts. Okay, y'all, if y'all made it this far, tell me how you feel hearing her story. Let me know in the comments. Personally, being a mom and a counselor, this interview was so powerful and impactful from her perspective, right? Now, these are behaviors I noticed in my oldest son. Watch the series, Who the F Did I Raise? It's a whole playlist to follow our story. It's on YouTube under @Chatterbox Therapists with the S, right? And it talks about how we navigated that whole mess. While we had to love a child, we had to learn how to survive, right? I found this article eye-opening. And it's awesome that she found a way to build a life for herself with this difficult diagnosis. While I agree that there may be perks to being a sociopathic therapist, I disagree with the sentiment that an empathetic therapist wouldn't be as objective. I believe both can be effective if applied using the correct modalities and treatment methods. When she used the analogy about asking her primary care physician or OBGYN how they feel about her, it gave me insight to how she may interpret providing services to patients and clients as monolithic or linear, when feeling humans are not that simple, right? For instance, when I visit my doctor or gynecologist, it's for medical reasons that may have psychological effects, but I wouldn't seek support from them concerning mental wellness. And it doesn't matter how they feel about me necessarily. But having empathy in any profession is beneficial and can assist with buy-in from the patient because they want to know that you care enough to put in the time and effort necessary to provide the best possible outcome. When I visit my therapist's office, it's to seek insight about my mental health. So while my therapist doesn't have to have a deep feeling for me because that would be unethical, I personally require a modicum of empathy and a basic understanding of my experience from an emotional wellness and clinical professional perspective. That's not to say that I wouldn't have a positive experience with a therapist that lacks empathy or a sociopathic therapist, because they will be more direct and less nuanced concerning social matters or certain matters, which is fine, right? Either can be fine. Two things can be true. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Take it or leave it, it's free. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content for mental health, tips and perks and weird stuff like this. And let's discuss how life is lifing. This narrative is adapted from a powerful, illuminating interview originally written by Patrick Agnew, a clinical psychologist and diagnosed sociopath. Special thanks to Dr. Agnew, who provided this wonderful insight to her life. Let this be a reminder that even the darkest corners of the psyche can be understood, and maybe with the right tools, even navigated. This narrative and this interview used for educational and awareness purposes. Thanks for watching. Visit chatterboxtherapist.com today.